Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, Ad Nauserinos, to episode 100. As always, my name is Dr. David C. Noe. I'm here in the vomitorium on a, kind of weather-changey October evening with my good friend and co-host, the fabulous Dr. Jeffrey T. Winkle. How are you, Jeff?
Feeling good this evening.
Are you?
The weather notwithstanding, you're right. It's kind of damp and rainy out
That's
there.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's fall in Michigan. What do you want?
Yeah, well, I want something very different, but this is what I expect.
What do you think you're gonna get?
Yeah, but what about that opening music? That's different. What's going on there?
That was rocking.
That was. Yeah. The first part there, we got our friend Scott Van Zen. What did you call those things that he's playing?
He's playing arpeggios.
Arpeggios, the wheedly, 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 wheedly.
Yes.
Like that. And then the man himself, Ken, coming in with that nice bluesy solo at the end.
Yeah, so I think it's our two wonderful music contributors working together.
That's right.
Yeah,
contributing so generously their talent here. So we're celebrating a special occasion.
This is episode 100.
That's right.
Yeah, we've reached the century mark on this podcast. It's very exciting. I knew we'd get here.
And it's time for a cheesy clip show, right?
It is, exactly.
Who wants to do all the work of writing the script and putting together the material and checking the footnotes and...
It's time to rest on our laurels and just of phone it in from here.
It's not time to put on makeup. It's not time to light the lights.
No, not at all.
Not time to get things started.
And who knows what heights we'll hit on with the show. This is it. No, it's time to sit back on the couch, let other people do the work. And
that was the Muppets.
Oh,
and then you added in Looney Tunes.
I did. I missed your reference there. I was never a big Muppets guy.
That's a portmanteau of some sort.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we're going to rest on our laurels this evening, and we're going to let ourselves do the work that we've previously done.
That's right. Yeah,
okay.
We're going to mail this one in.
That's right.
Okay.
So I'd like to give a kind of a semi-shout-out.
Really?
Yes, and that is to our friend Buster, who recently received another shout-out. And guess what this guy wants?
What?
When I told him we were putting together a cheesy clip show, he said, "Are you going to do the best of shout-outs?"
Oh.
He wanted to be in the best of shout-outs. Can you believe that?
It's a little greedy.
It's more than a little avaricious.
But you know what? Buster, he via you, he sent me that clip from Spinal Tap. So
that was
all is forgiven.
All is forgiven?
Yes.
Which one is that?
The Spinal Tap clip?
Yeah, which clip was it? Because I don't watch things he sends me. Come on.
It's with David St. Hubbins, who's the actor, I'm forgetting his name, the guy who played Lenny and Squeaky.
Yeah. He's pretending to be David Coverdale, right?
More or less, right? But he's talking about seeing Yngwie Malmsteen play and wanted just to throw away his guitar.
Right.
Like, what's the point anymore? And so Buster, he's a close listener.
Yeah.
And so it reminded him of an episode where I was referencing a similar kind of thing. You see someone who's so good at something and you like to do that thing, but you say, I'm never going to get to that level, so forget it.
Right.
So I thought that was a brilliant little addition.
It was. And I did watch it, in fact. And the funny part, and as I'm remembering now, the funny part is he says at the end there, I'm glad he added in the J to distinguish him from all the other Yngwie Malmsteens. Funny stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
And what does that have to do with classics, Jeff? Come on, make the segue. Get on the segue. And
what does that have to do with classics?
And roll around the neighborhood.
I was complimenting our wonderful shout outie,
right?
Buster for sending it along. Yeah,
the avaricious one.
Right. Were you going to make some kind of connection to the classics via Spinal Tap?
I was not even going to try.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have anything either.
But the ostensible theme of this humble podcast, now resting on its 100th episode laurels, is the classics.
Of course.
Taking them in.
And keeping them down.
Right. That's right.
We started, I think, our first episode, you used that very phrase. And I think that we've kept true to that vision.
Okay. Well, let's roll that first clip then.
We tossed around a few ideas, I think, but we settled on this, I think, for kind of two main reasons. I think, one, it's Latinate.
Right.
And that speaks to kind of the broader topics that we're going to be covering on this podcast. But it's lighter. It's kind of self-deprecating. Ad nauseam means like to the point of vomiting.
Yes. Right? So you've taken in all you can and you can't take in any more.
Right, exactly. And then it comes out. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that when you see things written in Latin or when something in Latin shows up, say, in a movie,
right.
Often the intention is to kind of raise the seriousness level. Something in Latin immediately has kind of an aura of importance.
Definitely.
Right?
In fact, pretty much not a week goes by that I don't receive some kind of communication from someone asking, it happened yesterday, how do I say this in Latin?
Really? You get a lot of those?
I get a lot of those.
Wow.
Because I want it to sound more important, more impressive, grandiloquent. So what do you think, Winkle?
Well, that was from our first episode, right?
Yeah.
So my first reaction is that I sound like an over-caffeinated squirrel, right? I mean,
What do I sound like?
I don't know what
You're too kind to say.
I am too kind to say.
Now, the listener doesn't know that there was a proto first episode. Do you remember that?
Oh, that's even more horrible to think about.
In my living room?
Yes, where we were trying to find ways to kind of contain the sound.
Yeah, we were trying to manipulate the acoustics.
Right, and I think we were huddled around. I think it was your son's Blue Yeti microphone.
You're right. And then I think we propped up some stools and draped a couple of bedspreads or comforters over it.
Yeah, it reminded me of like when my sons like to make forts with blankets and couches.
And then we crawled underneath there and tried to record some drivel.
It was ridiculous. Right.
Awful.
I hope. Did you destroy that tape?
I burned it in the yard.
Thank you.
Yep, kind of a ritual burning.
That was horrible. But I got to say, I still like the title of the podcast. Mm-hmm. I think that's aged well.
Yeah.
Over 100 episodes.
Well, it was Jillian who brought us together, my daughter. I said I really want to do a podcast. Not to form community, but to try to build a crushing media empire.
Right.
And she said, well, how about Winky? You should get together with him. You guys have a rapport.
I'm forever thankful to your lovely daughter. But it also reminds me that I knew you were the one who came up with the idea for the podcast.
But you came up with the idea for the name.
The name. But I want to mention, I think, if I remember correctly, I was not your first choice for a co-host. You were thinking about some other flunky.
That's true. You were not my first choice. But the guy who was my first choice, he wisely said, you need someone who's more attuned to your particular interests. He said, I'm interested and I could help you, but you got to get someone with a lot of pushback. I mean, words to that effect. Mm-hmm. And you're the guy with a lot of pushback, let me tell you. After 100 episodes, the push is back.
Oh man, you're feeling it.
I'm feeling it this evening.
All right. Should we roll another
Let's go
clip?
on to the next one. Let's roll clip 2. Similar to when I was in graduate school and I was teaching and I described some passage of literature as macabre, and one of my students actually corrected me and said, "Mr. Noe, I think that's pronounced macabre." And I said, "You've got to be kidding! What's that R doing in there? It's clearly macabre." Right. And so I failed that student, obviously. Yeah. Do you think that joke has grown old?
I don't think so.
No.
I always find mispronunciations hilarious.
I do too.
Right.
I like the phonetic twisting of the English language.
Yeah.
All the unpredictabilities, right?
Right. It reminds me sometimes in my myth classes, I will have students read aloud, right? Because I get sick of doing all the talking. You read this passage.
I'm sure they get sick of doing all the listening.
Absolutely. But these passages are loaded with long, complicated Greek words,
right?
And I don't give them any coaching because I think it's hilarious sometimes what comes out of their mouths.
Yeah,
the way they butcher that.
It's tough.
It is very tough. But it's also,
English is not phonetic. Who knows what those letters are doing in there?
Right.
It's crazy.
That's very funny. See, do you have any more mispronunciation stories along those lines?
I used to think there were two different words, facade and facade.
Really?
I may have mentioned that on this show at some point.
What was one and what was the other? Did you think they referred to?
I thought a facade was something you would put in front of a fort, as a way to protect you. But then I knew that a facade was something that was fake.
I see.
But what I didn't notice was the little sedia. The C has that little foot, that little tail sticking down there. It's a French thing. Blame it on the French, I like to say. And then I realized that's one word.
Wow. And so you never again designed or thought about a castle.
No.
And hiding behind the what was it?
The facade.
The facade. Good stuff.
Now come on, our listeners, right? Mm-hmm. Let's indulge in some, pointless flattery of the audience. They're people who read a lot of books too.
Oh yeah.
And a common problem is when you read books, you are introduced to a wide array of words which you don't encounter in everyday speech. So you don't know how to pronounce them.
Right. Yeah.
To go a little bit pedantic here, which is my specialty, the average speaker uses about 3,000 to 4,000 different English words in any given day, right? But the English language has more than 1 million. Yeah. So it doesn't take long to get out beyond your comfort zone and your comfort zone-y, and then you don't know how to pronounce those words.
Right. And if you only ever experience them, silently on a page,
that's right.
Right, you're gonna run into trouble.
Yeah, you sound like an egghead. So those two clips were both from episode 1, back in the early days.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go on to episode 2, where something was wrong with the audio.
How could we had technological problems?
Oh, yeah.
And so for Glaucus and Diomedes, it's the fact that they have this family history of guest friendship is way more important than their loyalty, you might call it, to the Trojan or the Greek side.
That's right.
Yeah.
So to contextualize a little bit, a few generations from now, when, my granddaughter and your grandson meet up in some business setting and they're trying to hash out a deal, right? Buying or selling a house or advertising or something. And the argument's getting kind of heated and the Winkles and the Noes are about to, draw on one another. And all of a sudden your granddaughter says, wait a minute, wasn't your grandfather involved in that short-lived but glorious podcast Ad Nauseam with my grandfather?
Yes.
And all of a sudden the conflict ends.
Exactly right. Everything is smoothed over.
They
and
sit
that supersedes
down,
everything.
Right. They sit down, they open a picnic basket, which is basically what Glaucus and Diomedes do on the battlefield. They open up this picnic basket and they start to compare notes of genealogy. Oh, that's pretty awful, isn't it?
That's awful. I have to imagine that for you, that's like listening to jazz.
Oh, it's terrible. We did figure out what the problem was, though.
Right? Were the microphones backward?
Yeah, the microphones have only they're unidirectional in terms of how the diaphragm and the sound reception and the what's it nots it works.
Yeah,
and we had them turned around.
We did. It's almost like we had no idea what we were doing. Right? It does sound like why did they choose to record from the bottom of a giant urinal?
That's right. Yeah. All right, let's roll the next clip. This one is from episode 4. And we're going to get some impersonations.
And as he's flying up, before he does it, he hears kind of echoing in his memory. He hears his father say, "It is forbidden. It is forbidden."
Right.
But he does it anyway.
It's a great Brando, by the way.
Thank you. It is forbidden.
Let me tell you something.
Just the range of that guy.
It is forbidden.
Oh, again, that's awful for an entirely different kind of reason.
Why?
Why? What business do I have attempting impersonations? I mean, that's a C- Brando at
You
best.
think so?
Yeah, maybe that is forbidden part, but trying to do the Godfather.
Yeah,
and
everybody does the Godfather.
Right, that's right. Everybody can do like a passable Nicholson.
That's right.
Too, right. So which I'm not going to attempt right now.
A passable Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So I mean, I guess maybe Brando kind of falls into that category when he's Don Corleone.
I did some impersonations when I was a child. I was very keen on that.
You were? Mm-hmm. Like who were you impersonating?
I had a Ronald Reagan.
Did you really?
Well, he was the president at the time.
Were you entertaining like family and friends, or what's going on here?
Large gatherings of moose and Lions Club, and no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I was mostly entertaining myself.
This is when, like, at the dinner table, like, for your family and your siblings, to kind of pull out your Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Wow. Mom, tear down these mashed potatoes. I had a John Wayne that was decent.
Okay, yeah, that's another one that I think that most people could do passably.
Yeah, he probably studied the classics.
John Wayne. Well, I tell you, Pilgrim. It's funny.
That's pretty bad.
It is bad.
It's Marion something, right? Is his real name?
Real name is Marion, right? Yeah. My kids have a neighborhood friend he's 9 years old, and I swear everything he says comes out like John Wayne. And so
really?
I was like, "Hey, Fulton, what you doing? Well, how you doing today? Can your sons come out and play today?" Oh, it's so funny
that's great.
Yeah.
Now let's skip ahead. Let's skip ahead to episode 12. We got a nice clip here from episode 12. I try to find like a bowl of spaghetti or something like that.
A bowl of spaghetti? Where's this going?
Well, it's something chaotic, right? There are a number of different elements, but there's no discernible order.
Gotcha, right.
Maybe a picture of a dorm room or something. Something that's all just kind of discombobulated.
I gotcha. I always use the image of like a lump of clay.
Well, a lump of clay
is
good.
Something that's awaiting to be ordered.
But there's nothing else in it, though.
Well,
come on, Winkle.
I mean, the translation that's often given for chaos is a yawning gap, right?
A yawning gap. You got a photo of that? So what were we doing there? We're trying
to identify or define chaos.
Okay, like a visual.
Right.
A visual image.
How are we supposed to? This is the chaos out of which order comes. And
got it.
What does that look like? And so you suggested something kind of wildly, disorganized, and I suggested something more kind of simple and unformed.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a story behind that, actually, and I don't think I told that story before.
Well, tell it now.
And that is back when I was working at the institution where we both worked.
Yes.
I was generously invited to be part of a little project for a book that was co-edited by one of our guests, Mr. Gary Schmidt, and my friend Matt Walhout, who was a professor of physics. And the title of the book was Practically Human, and it was a collection of essays about the liberal arts.
I remember this, yeah.
Yeah, and I wrote one that I was pleased with about the classics, and then we were together discussing the book afterward. It was like an after publication party or something.
Were all the contributors there?
All the contributors, or most of them, and the editors.
All right.
And people were just talking about what they liked and disliked. And I said, well, I'm not really that comfortable with the cover because it looks kind of chaotic.
Uh-oh.
And Matt said, well, what don't you like about it? And I foolishly said, well, if you like the picture of a bowl of spaghetti looking at you, because that's what it looks like.
It does.
And he said, and I thought that was funny. And he said, the original of that painting is hanging on my wall at home.
Now, did Matt find some humor in this, at least, or was it more kind of stone-faced?
Maybe a little bit of humor.
Okay.
I think he was fairly, he was quite kind to me and fairly, tolerant. But
He felt like you were impugning his taste?
I didn't know that he had that, painting. It's like a Jackson Pollock sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's fine for some, but no thanks.
Do you, I mean, this is pressing this too.
Just connected to classics. That's all I can say.
Well, I just wonder, do you know why that painting was chosen for that particular volume? What is it? How does it connect with the practically human?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it was just considered by some a beautiful work of art, and that's what you want on the cover of a book.
All right.
We should just maybe leave it there.
Okay.
And go on to the next clip.
Let's do it.
So in this section, Euripides and Aeschylus are kind of heating up their argument. So let me read a little bit. So Euripides says, "Look, I've watched and studied this guy, Aeschylus, for decades. His character's crass and tongueless and toothless. His mouth is a maelstrom of guttural gribble-grabble grovelly grunk." And Aeschylus responds, "Oh, is that right, you son of a garden goddess? You have the nerve to say that about me, you rag-stitching, gossip-kvetching, beggar-bewitching mountebank? You'll pay for this." Dionysus interjects. He says, "Calm down, Aeschylus. You'll pop an ulcer." Aeschylus, "I will not calm down. Not before I reveal this poet of cripples and freaks for who he really is."
So you really enjoyed translating
Oh, I did. It was just so much fun.
Episode 16, Jeff. That was a long time ago.
I don't remember it at all.
No? You've blocked it out?
No.
So this was entitled Euripides, Eubiades.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, thanks. I think it was yours.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's Alcestis Parts 1 and Part 2.
Dude, I love the Alcestis. Now it's coming back to me.
Okay, so why was your translation of the frogs in there?
Oh,
was it just our typical filler material?
Maybe, possibly, right? Maybe at that point in the podcast, we didn't have enough material to fill a whole episode. We just threw in whatever. But
I got an old grad school paper. I'll read part of that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. No, I'm still very proud of that translation of the frog.
It's great.
That's a lot of fun.
The grobbledy-grook and the pop and ulcer and so forth.
I often will insult people by calling them a son of a garden goddess.
You do that.
I'm not exactly sure what that means.
No.
But it doesn't sound good.
Do you use that on your poor neighbor Fulton?
Yeah, exactly. Right. He comes back with well, I sent for you yesterday, and here you come today. Right.
So that was 16. 17 was Honey, I'm Home, right? So later in the show today, I think maybe we ought to talk about your secret process for coming up with funny titles.
Okay.
And how we occasionally collaborate.
Mm-hmm. And how we often disagree.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we do.
No, we don't.
You do. I get a lot of pushback on that side of the table.
From me?
Yeah, sometimes.
In the writing of the titles?
Well, I mean, very often I come up with something I think it's pure gold.
But it's not.
And then you respond with, eh.
It's more of a meh.
I know, I hear this sound a lot. Eh.
It's a meh.
Okay, all right.
It's more like pyrite, frankly.
So I think in that part of the show, we're not always on the same wavelength, but I think that tension produces something good.
Speaking of wavelengths, it's time to talk about the ads.
Let's do it.
Let's roll clip 20.
That's kind of what you get, but the edges are a little sharper, the visuals a little less squinty.
And it brews a good cup of Joe?
A good cup of Joe? Are you reading the script even, Winkle? What does it say?
It says, and it brews a go cup of Joe?
You don't like that? Right on. It brews a sweet, degassed, a sweet, degassed cup with all the flavor and none of the brackish, none of the brackish tang. I can't do the next line. Listen up, ad Nazarinos.
Boy, we were losing it a little bit there.
We were. I think that was the moment I think brackish tangs became a running gag.
A running gag or an inside joke?
Well, it's a running gag.
What's the distinction?
Well, the inside joke is maybe it is only entertaining us, right? But we're inviting hundreds of other people to listen to this.
Thousands, Winkle.
So I think at this point we call it a running gag.
Okay.
And I think that I assume that most people enjoy that. I otherwise,
it's like a callback.
Yeah.
Right.
So, in fact, we had a listener.
Yes, we did.
Who's a big fan of the brackish tang.
Yeah, my friend Isaac.
Right.
Yeah, former student. I think you probably know him. In respect, for the absent, I won't mention his last name.
Okay.
But Isaac said, I really like the brackish tang.
And what did he want?
I can't. Oh, he wants a T-shirt.
Well, no,
he wants a T-shirt that says "Bring back the brackish tang."
Right. But didn't he also? He'd be happy if we did the brackish tang gag in every episode.
Well, I think he would like just the entire episode to just be you and I saying as slowly as possible, brackish
tang.
But for those who, the majority of the audience, are bored by this drivel, what was the genesis? What's the backstory of the brackish tang?
It was Peter Green's phrase.
Yes,
right, and it was
from his great book, The Greco-Persian Wars.
Right, and he was putting the reader, at the scene of the Battle of Thermopylae before kind of it all went down.
Yeah, the mise en scène. Right?
Yes, and he imagines the wind rustling through the trees.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Leonidas marching along the coast there,
right,
by the Gulf,
and your nostrils are filled with the brackish tang of the nearby sea,
which floats up over the plain to the hot gates.
Yeah,
so evocative.
It was great.
That guy can write.
That's right, and here we've reduced it to a ridiculous, stupid running gag.
A slogan for schlepping coffee.
Right.
But it's fun, isn't it?
It is.
So someone out there, come up with a T-shirt, brackish tang, and we'll give you all the proceeds, none of the proceeds. What's our plan?
I think they get 10%.
Okay.
All right.
That seems fair. We should roll the next clip.
Let's do it.
This one comes from episode 23. So 8th grade is in the high school, and they try to keep us separate but unequal was kind of what they were going for, and they succeeded. And I was terrified also.
Yeah.
But I have a keen memory of thinking about where can I find some upperclassman ally, right? Guy or gal, right, who will treat me, like mentor treats Telemachus.
Really?
Take you under their wing. Because once you have the approval and protection, right, of an older student in that setting, you're golden. Right? You're no longer on your own.
Right. It reminds you of trying to survive in a prison. Right. You have to kind of.
How could you have a memory of that?
Well, it's not a memory. I mean, all my knowledge of that comes from movies.
So that reminds me of I have a horrible 8th grade memory.
Well, let's hear it.
It's
Jeff.
nothing to do with the classics.
Would you like to sit down, take off your shoes,
no,
relax a little bit?
No, I'm fine where I am.
Okay.
I'm good. I did like how you tied your 8th grade experience into the dynamic of Telemachus. I thought that was pretty impressive.
Of course,
right?
yeah. I mean, because this show is about the classics, as I keep saying.
Right, and so jumping off that, I'm going to share a story that has nothing to do with the classics. Is that okay with you?
Oh, yes.
Okay, right.
As long as it doesn't go on for more than about 27 seconds.
Okay. Well, this is an embarrassing 8th grade memory of mine. So we had this week, I think it was called like twerp week, where like means like the woman is required to pay. It's like a Sadie Hawkins, where the girls choose the
Why
guys.
was it called that?
What? Called
Twerp?
Twerp.
Twerp.
The woman is required to pay. So it's kind of a reversal.
It's an acronym.
Right, a reversal of kind of your typical gender roles in
I see.
relationships. So,
got it.
And it was, so like, if a girl had a crush on you, she would kind of choose you for that week. And there was a number of kind of events during the week that you were supposed to do together. And so I remember.
So who was the lovely young lady who chose you?
Her name was Michelle.
Okay.
And she was wonderful. She was very sweet. But there was one day that was you were supposed to dress like your twerp.
Okay.
Like the other person. And so
it's a little cross-dressing kind of thing.
Well, you're jumping ahead of this.
Okay.
Any sane person would see that. Oh, you're supposed to show up wearing kind of the same thing, so everybody can see visually that those two are together. You match. But I read it as dress as Michelle would usually dress. And I said, what am I supposed to do with that? It was terrifying.
So what did you do with it, Michael?
I ended up doing nothing. I never talked to her about it, and I just kind of ignored it. So I'm not going to dress like Michelle dresses.
So you passed through the next 5 years or 8 years of high school, and not one word to Michelle.
That was after that week, it was pretty much done between she and I. But
very short.
I do remember that idea stuck in my head. And I said, "How can this possibly be? Who is going to do this?" And I certainly was not. And so
that's pretty embarrassing.
And then when in the next day when I saw people dressing, with similar, like wearing like the same kind of Michigan sweatshirt,
right?
Oh,
there you go.
That's what it was.
Dress like each other.
Exactly.
Wear something similar.
Right.
All right. Well, let's roll a clip from episode 24. And this one is called A Toast to the Host Who Can Boast the Most Roast.
Oh, so we're in the Odyssey here.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Let's roll it. Split cedar and arborvitae and other essential oils all around the island. Who is this Calypso?
She is, again, in the canon of mythology, we don't know a lot about her. She's a daughter of Atlas, I believe.
Okay.
Who is a Titan. But she's a minor goddess with her own island. Mm-hmm. And there's, I guess, apparently a lot of these minor goddesses that have their own islands.
Well, there are a lot of them out there.
We'll meet Circe.
Yep.
And she's another one that shows up. But,
that's right.
Should we talk about her name?
Yes, Calypso has a really interesting epithet. It's euplakamos. Euplakamos.
Yes.
Which means fair-haired.
With goodly locks.
With goodly locks.
Yeah.
Apparently she had long, beautiful hair, braided and tressed. It's an epithet of goddesses and women in Homer, especially of Dawn, right? And of Artemis. I'm reading here from the Liddell Scott and Jones, the big lexicon, the Great Scott. And later on, it's also used of boys and men in other parts of Greek literature.
Very interesting. So Calypso's the one you'd want for your shampoo commercial.
I'm doing a shampoo commercial?
Yeah, it's our new sponsor.
That's not in my contract.
So I'm imagining that Calypso's bathroom cabinet is filled with the finest of hair products.
I'm sure. Yeah. What would be some of the things you think she might have in there?
Well, I think she would have maybe a full line of BioRenew Hydrate Coconut Milk Shampoo and Conditioner.
Maybe a Fructis-style smooth blow-dry anti-frizz cream?
Oh, I think Homer later mentions that she uses nothing but Fructis style.
I think so, yeah. I think one of my favorites, as I was, Googling for the kinds of products that Calypso might use, was the Whole Blends Oat Delicacy Gentle Detangling Hair Milk by Garnier.
Oh, by Garnier. Hair milk.
What do you think, Jeff?
Oh, man, that nearly went off the rails. Or did it go fully off the rails?
I think it went fully off the rails. Yeah. We got some hate mail.
We did.
Well, we got a super fan down in Texas. She knows who she is. And she said, I did not like that long spiel about hair products.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, the show's not just for you.
Right.
So.
Right. I'm sure there were, as for every one of those, there were
five
that loved it. Right. I mean, we were fishing for a Fructus or Garnier sponsorship,
That's right.
which never panned out.
My motto is trust for success, always.
I still can't look at a glass of oat milk the same way ever again. No, that was good stuff.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. But can you attach all that to classics in
Of
some way?
course I can, sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, so back in the day, teaching at that former institution, I had a very sharp young student. You'd know his name, first name Michael, last initial K.
Yes.
Yes,
Know him well. Yep.
That's right. And he coined a wonderful Greek word, a neologism.
Oh, really?
Yes, the Greek word for bed is lexis,
Yes.
and the Greek word for hair is a trichai, right? So he coined the term for bedhead, lexitrichia.
Nice.
Isn't that nice?
Nicely done.
Yeah, you got, I'm suffering from lexitrichia. My hair's all messed up from having
That sounds way
slept.
more impressive than bedhead or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
right?
lexitrichia. I got a bad case of lexitrichia.
Nice.
So nice job, Michael. All right, let's roll clip number 28, which was our conversation with Susan Weisbauer.
Mm-hmm. I'm a musician myself, and so I keyed in on that you were a professional musician, and I just thought that was so interesting. And
But Jeff, you like to perform more than practice, right? It's the opposite.
No, I'm okay with performing. In some ways, I'm much more happier to be alone in a room with my guitar than in front of people.
What do you think, Jeff?
Was she mocking me with that high-pitched laugh there?
Yeah, ha, ha, ha.
Right.
I think a little bit.
Yeah, because it sounded kind of a little bit like Nelson from The Simpsons to me. Right?
I think that you enjoyed that interview even more than I did.
Well, it was wonderful talking to her.
Yeah, and people loved it too. Later on in the show, maybe we will read off a list of the most successful episodes in terms of the number of downloads. Might surprise people, but that one's right near the top.
It is.
She's got a lot of name recognition.
She does. I thought that she was just a really impressive person.
Yes, a Renaissance woman, charming, is talented. But you're a musician, so as a little special treat, we're going to play a portion of one of your songs right here, and I think it's called Drama Queen.
That's right.
So before people listen to it, can you give a little bit of an intro to what's going on?
Yeah. So the idea for the song came from I was watching a documentary about Janis Joplin, the great late singer who
She founded Joplin, Missouri, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Right. She died tragically young. She belongs to that horrible 27 Club, but she had that great, raw, wonderful rock voice. But the thing that struck me about the documentary is that she was from Port Arthur, Texas.
Okay.
And she went out to LA and kind of made it big in the scene. And Port Arthur, Texas is a very conservative town. And so there's a part in the documentary where she had some success in LA, and then she came back home, and she was gonna kind of stick it to to the squares,
the
right?
locals,
right? And what ended up happening is that the locals just kind of completely gave her the cold shoulder, and she ended up kind of, there was a really kind of sad interview where she just kind of crumpled, and she was kind of this lost schoolgirl who was just kind of reliving her school pain of being kind of an outsider back home, and she didn't get the great revenge that she wanted. And so I thought the lyrics of the song are from the point of view of the people back home, kind of reacting like, who is this weirdo coming back home, and like, who does she think she is, kind of telling us how it is,
right?
And so referring to her as the
drama queen,
welcome back drama queen.
Yeah. So that's the inspiration for the song. Instruments on that track?
Yes and no. Everything, the drums are programmed drums. I'm not a drummer.
But what do we go get? Bass, guitar, both electric and acoustic?
I think it's just electric on that one, and piano and vocals.
And all the vocals. Impressive, Winkle. So what are you doing on this crummy little podcast? You could be out there on the scene,
I should be out there on the scene.
Yeah.
What am I doing here? Right.
So let's roll the next clip. This is episode 31. One of our first guests. I think there was only just a couple before him, and this is Ed Watts about the decline and fall of Rome.
I remember this, yeah.
What is it called?
Mortal Republic.
Mortal Republic.
Yes.
All right, roll that clip.
I don't like him as a person. And actually, even as a Latin stylist, I don't like him. I like stylist a lot more. Yeah, I know.
Oh, Ed.
You're talking to a Ciceronian over
his
here.
Insights are incredibly precise and profound.
So how do you feel now? Are you still kind of upset about him trashing your guy?
Yeah, he trashed Cicero. Great guest, but I don't know. Anybody who doesn't like Cicero, could that guy be a friend of mine?
I don't know. What are the chances of getting this guy back on the podcast?
Pretty high, actually.
Really?
Yeah, he liked it a lot. Yeah, and he sent us another book, The Immortal Decline and Fall of Rome, something like. I can't remember the Eternal Fall of Rome. I think that's what it is.
This guy's just cranking out books.
He's very impressive.
A prolific guy. Yeah.
Now Mishka put together some of these clips, and she entitled this one "The Horror."
Oh,
which I think is mocking me.
I think so too.
Because I like Cicero, and it is horrific to consider.
I could do another Brando impression.
Go ahead.
I just watched it in my film class. We watched Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
Where the last words of Brando in that film are "the horror." The horror. As Colonel Kurtz. Have you seen Apocalypse Now?
No.
Okay.
Colonel Kurtz?
Kurtz.
The guy that invented the chicken and the...
What? You're talking about the Colonel Sanders?
Colonel Sanders, sorry.
Right. Sorry, no.
Was it the guy in Hogan's Heroes?
Colonel Klink.
Sorry.
Yes, all right.
All right. So let's go on to the next clip, after which we'll probably have some ads. And this is going to be from episode 32, the Odysseus series, right? The Odyssey series. And this one was entitled Swined and Dined.
That's a good one.
Roll the clip. Scylla, well, you haven't said enough about Scylla.
Well, tell us more about Scylla. You got more to say about it?
I do.
Okay.
Scylla is a woman from the waist up. She's anthropomorphic, but she is a pack of dogs from the waist down.
That's creepy.
Think about that for a minute, listener.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, to be a dog from the waist down, bad enough, but to be a pack of dogs, inevitably students ask me, how does that work? How can someone be a pack of dogs from the waist down? You know what my reply is?
What?
That's a biology question.
So don't ask it.
You can't ask me that.
Right. Yeah. Especially for these kind of composite monsters.
The
right?
chimeras.
Right.
They fit together somehow.
Right.
That's all you need to know.
And in terms of like horror, that's best left to your imagination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the thing that really bothers you about Scylla is how the dogs fit together? No, that's not the
I'm more concerned about who let the dogs out. No good?
We got to go to break already. Who let the dogs out?
God, man, it was bad.
When did that peak? About 2001, something like that?
I think even earlier than
really?
that. Yeah, exactly.
I know it was used for the Baltimore Ravens when they were a team that was successful.
Really?
And I think
Who let the dogs out for the Ravens?
Yes. I don't know why there's any kind of relation.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a horrible song.
Yeah.
Right. But
probably uses a drum machine.
Oh, exactly. I don't think it took long to produce that one. But I still find Scylla creepy. I hear that, and I'm imagining kind of this swirling pack of dogs,
right?
Making
how did those bodies join together, right. And how does she move around on those joined bodies?
Right. Have you ever seen these these manuals of like cryptozoology?
No.
All these
but I was thinking about getting a graduate degree in cryptozoology.
Yes, right, exactly. It's a booming field.
It is.
Right.
I read something in the Wall Street Journal of all places. This is about 2 weeks ago, of persons who are really convinced that Bigfoot is real.
Yeah.
I mean, the hardcore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're still looking for him.
Yep.
Have you seen that famous famous clip?
Of course.
Right,
with
exactly.
the arms swinging and.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you heard what Mitch Hedberg, the comedian, has said about Bigfoot?
Can you connect this to the classics?
No, I can.
Okay.
I can just kind of extend what we're talking about here. But he says that the problem with Bigfoot is that Bigfoot is blurry, and that's way more frightening than just him being a Sasquatch. Is the fact that we have this out of focus monster walking around there threatening the countryside. So
I don't get it.
No, nothing. Okay, let's move on.
All right. But speaking of blurry,
yeah,
it's time for the ads.
All right.
This episode of Ad Nauseam, the Cheesy Clip Show, is brought to you by Racial Coffee. Based in Portland, Oregon, the fabulous entrepreneur who is taking brackish tang out of everyone's morning ritual, Mr. Mark Helweg. Mark has designed an amazing machine. Jeff, what do you like about the Ratio 9?
Ratio 9?
Oh, sorry, 8.
8. I love my Ratio 8.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best coffee machine that I have ever owned.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best coffee machine I've ever used. And this is coming back, I had this extended road trip this past summer where we stayed in lots of different places, and they have the fancy breakfast, and they have kind of the they always have kind of the multiple coffee machines there.
Oh yes.
And I every time I walked in, I scoffed, I sneered. Right, exactly.
Right, like I'd use one of those.
Yeah, exactly. You have the carafe that's going to go roasting on the boiling plate,
the Kindle brick,
and it was going to taste burnt. It was going to taste awful.
Right,
and it made me long for home.
Yes, yeah. So I was traveling this past week, took a little family vacation, drank coffee in a number of different settings. But much like you, I kind of lost my taste for it, and I was very pleased to get home. And Sunday morning, brew up my first pot in the Ratio 8. It was fantastic.
Right. And I graduated from the Ratio 6, which is another wonderful machine.
It took time, but you paid your dues.
I did.
You went through the studies. You went to class. You filled out the exams, and you got to walk into the Ratio 8.
I did. It was great. And so, listeners, if you're interested in either one of these wonderful machines, the 6 or the 8, you got to go to ratiocoffee.com.
It's a gorgeous website.
It is. It's beautiful. And just look at these things. They're works of art. Find the one you like. And if you type in the code, I believe it's ANCO7B.
Yes, 7B, as in brackish.
And that will get you 15% off your entire order.
That's correct. And you'll also be supporting this podcast.
Yeah.
So we'd really appreciate it. It's, it's not a cheap machine. It's not squirty plastic discard after a year. It's an investment, but you're only good as your tools. And if you're making coffee every day, I can't imagine regretting this purchase.
No, and this is one of those areas where you get what you pay for.
Exactly.
And you buy this machine, it's going to be around for a very long time.
Yeah, that's why this podcast is free to listen to.
Exactly.
Because you get what you pay for.
So check it out. This episode of Ad Nauseam, the Cheesy Clip Show, is also brought to you by Hackett Publishing. Hackett Publishing, they've been around for 50 years. I believe exactly 50 years this year. This is their anniversary year.
Started in 1972.
They've got offices in Indianapolis, Indiana. They've got offices in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And for a half century now, they have been providing affordable, high-quality translations of works, not just from the classics, but from all areas of academia, from all around the world. Asian studies, Islamic studies,
South American studies.
And as we've talked about, they have multiple translations of the same work, so you can get the flavors of different authors, different approaches to these things. I love them for my classroom. I love them for my bookshelf. I can't say enough about Hackett Publishing.
Just this week, Jeff, I received an email from a friend. I was a little surprised. I was pleased, of course, but I was a little surprised because this friend, longtime friend, was asking me advice and says, "Do you have a favorite English translation of the Aeneid?" And I thought, wait a minute. This got to be a prank, right?
Come on.
You got to know I love the Lombardo.
Yes.
So he says, in the more recent times I have taught Vergil, I approach the matter as teaching an author. We read selections and so on and so forth. Mentioned some of the other translations. Haven't written back yet. I'm going to protect the person's name here in case they're listening. Mm-hmm. But obviously the Lombardo, because the merits of that translation are just phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. And the selection is just amazing. So this morning,
right,
I was thinking about maybe some future episodes of this podcast.
This podcast?
Yes.
We're not stopping at 100?
No, we're going on, audience.
Okay.
And an author that I would really love to cover in some fashion is Lucian.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Samosata.
Yes. Lots of fun. And so I thought,
what's out there?
What's out there?
Right.
And so I went to Hackett's website.
The Menippean Satires.
It came out last year.
Ha!
Yeah, it's hot off the presses. And it looks I looked at a little sample. It looks fabulous.
They loved him in the Renaissance.
Yes.
Erasmus could not get enough Lucian.
Right.
Apparently a very witty guy.
Right. Yeah, sharp and sarcastic.
Right.
But also a great window onto that era that we call the Second Sophistic.
Did he have a gentle side, Lucian? And we're getting a little bit off track here. Or was he always brackish tang?
Oh, I think he was tangy, baby, all the time.
You stuck the spoon in him, you dropped it in the glass, you stirred it around, and you were, set as an astronaut.
Exactly right. Are we getting away from the central?
Who are we talking about?
We're talking about Hackett Publishing.
Hackett Publishing.
Right. So, listener, go to hackettpublishing.com, HACKETT publishing.com. Find the works that you want. Drop them in your little satchel and type in the coupon. What's our coupon code for
this? It's AN, as in ad nauseum, 2022.
AN2022.
Last year it was AN2021. The year before that, AN2020. Who knows what it's going to be next year?
No, stay tuned. Right. But typing in that coupon code will get you a couple of wonderful things. 20% off your entire order and free shipping.
Check it out. All right, Jeff, so as we get back into it, before rolling a clip, maybe we should give the listener a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to do the ads.
Yeah.
What do you think? What have you learned? What have you forgotten? What have you dread?
Well, one, I have to say, I love our sponsors.
Yes. No, but sincerely.
Sincerely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Hackett. I love Ratio. They've been really good to us.
High quality stuff, really.
But it's hard to kind of keep the ads fresh, though.
That's why we don't.
That's right. That's why
why they're all the same.
That's why we drag out these same gags time and time again, and so it's
not even Isaac, a gag that not even Isaac could love.
Right. So it's often with kind of great constern that I approach the ads, because I feel like I want to do due diligence for these people that supported us.
Yeah, justice to their support.
Right. But I feel like Aerosmith, playing "Walk This Way" for the 30 millionth time, and how do you do that and bring that original energy back into it? It's very hard.
Well, in the words of Dan Quayle, I knew Aerosmith, and you're no Aerosmith.
But we're trying our best.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
That was Lloyd Benson, by the way.
I remember that.
Talking about Dan Quayle. It wasn't actually Dan Quayle.
Right.
I was trying to both educate and deceive the listener at the same time.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's tough with the ads. It's great, like you said, to have fantastic sponsors. That makes the job easy.
Right.
Some people have told me, your friend down in Florida, right? I don't remember her name.
Yeah, Kelly.
Early on, she said, the ads are my favorite part. It's a little discouraging.
Right. Well, right after that when I mentioned that on air,
right,
she texted me and says, "That's not true. I love the podcast." She wanted to correct that. Right?
Yeah. Most people just like the music, right? The first 20 seconds and the last 20 seconds. That's a show right there.
That's a show. You listen to the
skip
start,
the long middle.
You fast forward through everything else.
Just turn the volume down and take a nap. Turn it back up.
There you go.
It's perfect.
That's all you need. That's all you need.
So we need to roll the next clip. And this is from episode 33, which is in the Odyssey series. It's called Reunited, and it feels so good.
Did you like that song from the 70s?
I can't remember all of it, nor who performed it.
Right. Yeah, Super Cheeseball. Do you remember that aspect of it?
It's fitting for this episode, because that's all we're doing.
Well, let's listen.
one kind of funny thing I found
I'll decide if it's funny.
Okay, right. One thing I found funny in these books was Menelaus says, "Yeah, here's some gifts, but if you have time, let's go on this little Xenia tour." He says, "Let's go around." He says, everybody's giving gifts these days.
Okay,
right. So, and he's probably thinking, "Hey, this is Odysseus' son. That's gonna be another hook. We can go from town to town, house to house.
Collect gifts.
Do
they have like a little punch card? When you go to all the places, you get a T-shirt, like the bourbon tour?
Yeah, if you hit them all, you get a free T-shirt.
Right.
Exactly right. But I'm trying to imagine, what, they hauling wagons? Where's this stuff going? Again, maybe these questions that you don't ask.
What do you think, Jeff?
About the wagons full of gifts?
Yeah.
Right, I'm still baffled by it.
The mini Xenia tour?
Right, exactly. So I think it is one of those kind of unexplained things. Like, where's all this stuff coming from?
Well, Homer doesn't play by people's rules.
No, he doesn't.
He does what he wants to do, and it's an accurate, poetic, I would say, reflection of maybe not what people actually do, but what they think about and what they love.
Right.
You read the Odyssey. Oh, that's not how people behave normally. But it is what we think about.
Right.
Food and love and war and struggle. This is, occupies our mind.
It's true. And so when we zero in on kind of that minutiae, you're kind of missing the forest for the trees.
That's right.
Right. So like in one of our more recent Aeneid episodes, right, and suddenly, when Aeneas throws these games, remember he has these boxes full of gifts.
Yeah, you were bothered by that too. I was pulling out gifts from all over.
Right. So it's still a little weird, but I take your point. That's not the overall point of the passage.
And I'd just like to say that at the beginning of that clip, I made some snarky comment. I'll decide if that's funny.
Yeah.
And I should have let you decide.
Oh, I see.
Because it was funny. You were totally right.
Oh, thank you.
So we should roll the next clip. This one comes from episode 34, still in the Odysseus series. Yeah. It's called Take a Gander at This Dream I Had. Homer's Odyssey, Part 9. And this is the absolute dog.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
I think of all of our episodes, this may have the least number of downloads, even though it's something like 2 years old now.
Wow. Man, was it just that bad?
I don't think so. If you listen to this clip, I think there's some charm. Yeah. Maybe the word gander. As you think about how Google search works, gander is not a word I enter into the Omnibox very often. Is it for you?
No, not at all.
There's Gander Mountain, I think, some kind of clothing store.
Right. So is your theory?
That's it.
Is your theory that when most people listening to this podcast
just stumble upon it.
Stumble by typing in strange keywords.
That's right.
Right.
That's why the episode "The Young and the Restless" got so many hits. I think. It was a good episode. You helmed that one. That was the Joseph Campbell one. You put that together.
Yeah.
But it's surprising how many downloads it got because I didn't think people were looking for that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No.
Let's roll that one from episode 34.
Okay. So in some of these minor suitor characters who are mentioned, and we get these little vignettes. There's a.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Amphinomus.
Amphinomus. Yes, exactly. Yep. I think he's one of these characters where Homer at least makes us step back.
Yep.
And mourn a little bit.
Give them a little bit of credence, a little bit of sympathy.
Right.
Is Amphinomus the character that can live both in the palace and out of the palace?
Exactly. He's
Right. Or am I thinking of someone else?
No, this is the guy.
Okay.
Yeah, he's as at home in a bedroom as he is out under the stars.
Okay.
Right? He's amphiminous.
Amphinomus. Amphinomus. Yeah, what does he wrap his sandwiches in when he brings them to work?
I'm not sure exactly.
Aluminum. I thought you would have seen that coming.
No.
So what do you think, Jeff?
That's great. That's great stuff, right? So I don't understand why the lack of download.
I don't amphinomus.
Oh, that's great. That's funny stuff. So maybe this clip show will encourage current listeners. Hey, I need to go back and listen to that.
And that's the whole purpose, actually.
Bump the numbers
of the Cheesy Clip Show is to somehow resurrect episode 34.
That's what. Right.
Give it a new lease on life.
Yeah. We'll see.
All right, so the next clip is from episode 36. You remember the title of that one?
We're still in the Odyssey series here, right?
So we're just slogging through it.
This is Come for the Wine, Stay for the Retributive Justice.
Yeah, was that yours or mine or a combination?
I think it was you were kind of all about the retributive justice.
Oh, I always am.
Right, and so I think I came up with the title kind of based on kind of your ideas around that.
Kind of poking me in the eye, wouldn't you say?
Not at all. It was an homage.
Okay, yeah. I'll take it. Let's roll that clip.
An almost impossible feat of marksmanship.
And strength. Because the arrow has to be going at a very high velocities.
Right. And as we'll see, just even stringing the bow seems to be an impossible task. Right. So this is where it all goes down. And Penelope goes up to retrieve the bow, not the bro, the bow, and bring it down for the contest.
So you wanted an homage, but you got a blooper.
I did, but it makes me really wish there was a version of the Odyssey where Penelope actually did, mishear things, and she came down with the bro, and just like
what is that?
It's just like just like some dude,
big muscly guy.
Yeah,
doesn't know what he's doing.
Like some kind of California guy. Hey,
right.
What's going on here? What's with the X's? Right.
Maybe have was it Fred Armisen?
Yes,
from the Californians.
The Californians.
He could play that.
Exactly. Comes in there and this says no, not the bro.
The bow.
The bow.
Right.
That's a can't miss gag.
That's like a spin-off into a sitcom based on the Odyssey.
Yeah.
Right.
I always thought that a great spoof would be. Are you familiar with like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette? You know the show.
I know the genre. Right. It's get a bunch of attractive young people together and see what happens.
Right. And so the Bachelor, has to kind of winnow the field down and pick the one. Wouldn't a great spoof would be kind of a Bachelorette version of the Odyssey
on Ithaca?
On Ithaca, so Penelope is your Bachelorette and all the suitors, right?
Okay.
And you have kind of those one-on-one or those one person on camera kind of talking about his or her experience in the household.
Okay.
I think the potential for humor there.
You think that'd be good?
Is big.
Yeah, but if it's going to be Homeric, she'd have to kill most of them.
Well, there's the twist.
That's the twist.
Right. So
nobody saw that coming.
Instead of giving you a rose, she stabs you through the abdomen with a spear. Right.
So it'd be kind of like a combination of one of those kinds of shows in the old Survivor. Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
The reality show.
I'd watch that.
Okay. Well, let's roll the next clip. And this one is from episode 39, which is entitled, You Can't Dutch This.
Okay, with a little MC Hammer nod.
You came up with that.
I did.
And I liked it quite a bit, especially that we didn't spell the word you.
Yeah,
right?
Yes, of course.
Because I'm sure that he didn't either.
No.
Mr. Hammer.
No, it's right on.
Yeah. This was about Daniel Heinsius.
Right. Who's that again?
Yeah, exactly. He was a Renaissance scholar, an extraordinarily learned man. Mm-hmm. He was at the Synod of Dort. He wrote in Latin and Greek and Dutch and Hebrew. The guy had poetry, tons of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just so impressed by his industry.
Yeah. Well, let's roll the clip. Let's hear about it.
I think this is the first time that Dutch 17th century poetry has been read on a podcast.
It's got to be.
I would think so.
I would think that's a definite first.
So what do you think, Winkle? Are we going too niche
with this Dutch poetry?
Yeah, the whole thing in this episode.
I think if anything, it's not niche enough.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I looked at some of our stats, and our listenership in Holland, in the Netherlands, is kind of saddeningly low.
It's a little lackluster.
It's as low as the lowlands. That's terrible.
And you say not niche enough?
No, not niche enough. I'm going to go even more niche, right? Right. So no,
I like the way that you improv there. I got to say, you said you looked at our numbers coming out of the great state, the great country of Holland.
Yeah.
Right, and they were just kind of abysmally low.
Right.
You threw in that bad pun at the end.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
And there was my bad attempt to sound like a Dutchman saying lackluster.
Oh, that's what that was?
Yeah, lackluster.
Lackluster.
Isn't that what they would say?
I guess so.
All right. Guess so. You're right. Dutch. Come on.
I know. I have to admit, I have to say I am always kind of fascinated by the things that you are fascinated by. Like,
I knew that was coming.
Before the episode, I had never heard of Daniel Heinsius before.
Heinsius.
Heinsius.
Heine to his friends.
Right, there we go. So do you
thought he invented ketchup, probably.
Right. So no, I'm thinking like with the Odyssey or the Iliad, if I wanted to strike up a conversation with somebody, I could probably find somebody fairly easy who would know something about that.
You're right.
But do you just kind of suffer in silence? Who are you talking to about Daniel Heinsius? Do you have compadres out there that you can
My secret is out.
And share this passion with?
No, there aren't a lot of people.
Right.
That's why I dragged that stuff onto the podcast.
Yeah.
Like the one we didn't cover, which was the one on William Perkins and the memory treatises.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first appearance of Lazy Steve.
Yes.
We didn't run that clip, but they can go back and listen on their own. I think it's number 18,
Mm-hmm.
Cranks for the Memories.
Yeah.
You remember that?
That was good, right.
Yeah, with Bruno, right? Giordano Bruno and Peter Ramus and all those.
Kind of how to organize your memory.
Correct.
Right? Exactly. As kind of a building full of rooms.
Yes, with images.
Or kind of rotating Lazy Steves.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Wheels, big wheels.
Yeah.
Or is it going to be more of like a dialectical way that Perkins recommended?
Yeah. No, I love that because that was all completely new to me.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, in conclusion, my obscure esoteric interests have actually delighted you.
Absolutely.
To your surprise.
I love esoteria.
So we need to roll the next clip, and this is from episode 41, which is entitled, you ready? We Bowled This City. The Mysteries of Mithras.
Yeah.
The description. This week, Jeff and Dave do some spelunking to try to figure out what the strange mystery rites of the Persian cult of Mithras were all about. I imagine ourselves in, fedoras and Dan Rather travel vests, and we're, walking around the Mediterranean. The way these descriptions were written, it's like we're actually doing things.
Right.
Should we roll the clip?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Okay. And what about the mysteries of Orpheus?
Orpheus, too. Orpheus, famous for being the great musician, the great lyre shredder, right, of Greek mythology.
Lyre shredder?
He's shredding like guitars. I'm borrowing this from you. Don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about.
Lyre shredder? His amp went to 11.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. So he's a son of Apollo, the god of music. But he, too, has this strange story where he's descended upon by a group actually of worshippers of Dionysus. Maenads, and they tear him apart.
Limb from limb.
But his head goes on singing.
As it floats down the river.
Right. And so he goes on. It's a weird, strange, bloody story, but he also transcends death. His song transcends death.
Yeah, to quote Celine Dion, his head will go on and on.
Is that what she was talking about?
Absolutely. So there we go. Right?
Celine Dion.
Yeah, what can I say?
Big fan, right? You?
No. But as I was saying to someone the other day when we were listening to, it was in the airport or something, she's got about 3 notes. It's like a G, maybe. Uh-huh. The G above middle C, I don't know what it's called, but the G, the A, and the B.
Yeah.
She owns those notes, right?
Uh-huh.
And when she camps on one of those notes, the sound is gorgeous.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I don't really like anything else.
No, I think that's a very fair assessment, though.
Isn't that kind of what pop music is, frankly? I mean, with some exceptions, you've got people who have honed a very small range, and all the songs are written to that register.
Right. There's a joke about the 4-chord song.
Right.
You just basically need 4 chords, and you can play any pop song that has ever been written.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. Celine Dion, she's very talented, but she has a very kind of a
tight focus.
A tight focus, right. Yeah. But I do like imagining the severed head of Orpheus singing the song from Titanic, right? That's a great image.
As it floats down the river.
That's a great mashup.
All right, Jeff, so let's roll the next clip. And this one is from episode 45. And this was the episode with the great Ross King.
Oh, yeah.
A conversation with Ross King. Let's roll the clip.
2,000-acre park. And so I go for a walk there. I come back and work for another couple of hours before my wife then comes out. She used to have a bell that she rang. Stopped using it when this bell was to tell me it's time to come in and help cooking dinner.
Did it make you feel Pavlovian, right?
Time to come back to the 21st century.
So there you go.
Yeah, that remains one of my favorites.
That was so much fun.
That was so much fun. It was so unexpected,
right?
Because I think you sent out the inquiry, right?
The generosity of the guy.
Yeah, and he was so kind.
Yes,
and he didn't rush us. He kind of took his time. He was happy to talk about everything.
Very gracious.
Right.
If you told me, 10 years ago, hey, if you start a podcast, you can talk to one of your intellectual book writing heroes. I'd have done it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought? So this is, again, another reminder to the audience. If you haven't read Ross King's books, go out and do so. And he's one of those rare guys who can take a really complex subject, research it to death, and then write it in such an engaging and approachable kind of way. Mm-hmm. He's the best of kind of the popularizers out there.
Yeah. I would start with the Pope's ceiling.
Yes.
Which is Michelangelo.
Agreed.
Then maybe move on to Brunelleschi's dome.
Mm-hmm. And then Last Supper.
The Last Supper. Yep.
Another great one.
Yep. And the Da Vinci. And then the one we read most recently, which is The Bookseller of Florence.
Right. So good.
Everything is a hit.
So good. And he said, hey, next book, I'll come back on.
Yeah, it was generous.
And we're going to jump on that.
Remember, we kind of tried to guess. So what is the next book? And we might have actually teased it out.
Oh,
Botticelli.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which would be so exciting.
Yeah, exactly. No, so that was a ton of fun. And yeah, I think that's in my top 3.
Right. We have had some great guests on this program. Mm-hmm. There's just no doubt. I mean, generous to share their time with us and brilliant in their respective spheres of expertise.
Yes.
Okay, we're winding down a little bit, but let's roll the clip from episode 48, which was with our friend Dr. Patrick, and I'm using that term loosely, Dr. Patrick Owens. Roll the clip. Virum cognosco qui Romae adest. Right? Mm-hmm. I know a man who lives at Rome. Something like that.
It have to be subjunctive because it's in indirect discourse. Relative clauses within indirect discourse require subjunctive.
It wasn't indirect discourse.
I know a man who.
Yeah.
That's indirect discourse. I know a man who.
It isn't, is it?
Yeah.
It's just describing the man, isn't it? How's it indirect discourse?
I know.
Yeah.
And then what comes after I know?
Virum cognosco. I know a man.
Yeah.
Or virum qui Romae adest cognosco.
There you go.
I got to change the syntax.
Anyway, that's we can use that example. That's fine. Yeah.
And wouldn't it be indirect question? Isn't that what you're saying instead?
I was thinking that you meant I know that there is a man who is present, and if it's I know that it is a man who is present, that would be adset.
Okay, a relative clause, a characteristic, in other words. Right. That's not what I was intending to express, but maybe I got the clause in the wrong spot.
I'm sure I'm mistaken. No. Great. But examples.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Jeff, what do you think?
I got to admit, that was so fun, just kind of standing on the sidelines. You could just hear me just kind of chuckling in the background because it did get a little tense there. I could hear in your voice there that you were about ready to throw down.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. You were going toe to toe.
Well, I respect that guy more,
I know you
more
do.
than you could ever imagine.
I do, and he was he's a great guest.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the guy knows his Latin.
He does.
Right, but there was...
But I thought I was right.
I think
I didn't... I mean, not saying I was, but I thought I was, obviously, because that's what you do when you're an egg-headed pedant. You think you're right. It's part of the job description.
Right, but it was in that moment, he had two alpha Latin guys stepping toe-to-toe, and neither of you wanted to back down.
No, especially not on air.
No, right?
This is why Mishka entitled this clip, quote, "When Things Got Heated in the Vomitorium."
Yeah. And I think that's the only time I think in the now 100 episode history of this show where I felt there was some.
You were a little frightened.
And it wasn't frightened, but there was some real tension in the room.
Yeah.
Right. But it was fascinating.
Yeah, and that show did really well because he's an expert.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to roll our final clip. Then we
Yep.
have a few things to do before we end this episode, and this is from episode number 50, and that is the one based on Aristophanes' frogs, and it's entitled Brekekekex Coax Quox.
All right.
Let's roll the clip. Yeah, and you should know, listener, that Dr. Winkle maintains in each of our private conversations that his taste is impeccable.
It is impeccable. I like about 5 songs total.
Yes. Yeah. I can tell you sometime what his least favorite songs are.
That's a topic for
Those are
another
the
day.
ones I happen to like. All right, Jeff, so Mr. Impeccable Taste.
Johnny Pop.
Yeah. What are those 5 songs that you like?
Oh, man. You're putting me on the spot. I got to name them?
You knew that was coming.
Right. Well, let me give you... I have this discussion with my friends often. Like, give me your top 5 songs. Now,
we've never talked about it. Does that mean we're not friends?
It might mean that.
Okay.
That's a subject for another conversation. But top 5 songs, top 5 movies. For me, that's always kind of rotating out. But currently, my number one song, like a song that if it comes on the radio, and even if I hear it, all the time, I'll never change the station because I can get something new out of it every time. Is Peter Gabriel's "Salisbury Hill"? You know that song?
No.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd recognize it.
Was it featured in Apocalypse Now?
It was not, but it's been featured in a number of movies, but you probably haven't seen.
Salisbury Hill?
Salisbury Hill.
Is that where they make the steak?
Yeah, it's very popular there.
Okay.
It's a great song, so I'll share that. That's
right.
That's one of the 5 songs that I like. Yeah.
Number 2?
Number 2, my gosh, it's got to be. Oh yes, it's a song
like a prayer by Madonna.
No, that's a wretched song. Oh my gosh, that's one of the worst ever. Why did you bring that up?
Because I didn't think you'd like it.
Okay. Tempted by Squeeze is probably also my number 2. Sometimes finds its way into the number 1 slot, and so I'm going to leave it at that.
That's it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's it's hard for me to kind of even though in the clip I joked that I only like about 5 songs, which it's not true, but to kind of talk about what are my top 5 songs, that's very, very difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to tax you.
Yeah, but I'm putting you on the spot. Favorite song?
Favorite song of all time?
Yeah.
Well, I think we talked about this in the Christmas episode.
We did?
Yes. If put to it, I would have to say, I'm going to sound stuffy and classical.
Okay.
It's not really a song. I would say Haydn's Piano Sonata number 16.
Okay.
If that's all I had to live with,
Right.
it would be that. or his trumpet concerto. But I like a lot of other stuff.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna ask you, what's your favorite pop song?
Favorite pop song?
Exactly. Like, you got anything?
I really like More Than a Feeling by Boston.
Okay.
I never change that.
Yeah. Okay.
I just, that's a wonderful song.
I got you. Well done. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
Well, Jeff, we have a few items of business to take care of before we round this out.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you something about your view on the process of coming up with the show titles.
Right.
Some people like these titles.
Yeah. No.
And the ones who don't should.
Right. It's a lot of fun to try to come up with these, right? So, I mean, as if you're a listener who's paid attention, if you looked at the website and you see the titles of the episodes, almost all of them contain some kind of ridiculous pun, right? And so, but my
some kind of assonance,
right? But my favorites are the one where if I can come up with a pun, but it also comments on the aspects of the episode, and so it's not just a pun for punning's sake. And some of those titles are just puns for the sake of being puns.
Yes.
But like one of my favorites is Cranks for the Memories.
Yes.
Right. So the Cranks refers to kind of the squabbling guys.
Right.
And the episode is about kind of the theories of memory. So
yes, which included a crank that turned a wheel.
There you go. And so it works on those multiple levels. That's really I think that's really hard to pull off. But
yeah. And you write about 80% of the titles, I would say.
Yeah.
And I occasionally offer a little tweak to the basic goodness that you have put out.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're the mind behind it.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun, but I think it's really hard to land on a pun that works on 2 or 3 levels.
Right. And remember, you said at the beginning of the show that we were going to look forward to another century, another 100 episodes.
Yeah.
We have our work cut out for us.
Absolutely.
If we're going to come up with any more.
I know. We can do it though.
Okay.
Yes, I believe in you.
That's one of us. So the top 10 most downloaded episodes.
Yeah, what do we got?
This might surprise the listener. I don't know. The first one is episode 1. Makes sense. Classics as a way of life. And of course, anyone who has put out a podcast, which these days is everyone. I mean, your cat probably has a podcast.
He's got a couple.
Yeah.
Yep.
They know that in the early stages when you're learning the genre, that's your first bite at an audience where they might listen to the first episode, but you're also no good at it that point.
I know.
So, if we could only go back and improve some of the nonsense.
Exactly. Right. So, often the debut album by any band is, that's awful.
It's weak.
You want to stick that back in the closet.
Right. They got one really good song.
Right.
It's like the demo tape. Right?
Exactly.
And they get on to the real sophomore season. They're ready to go.
So it's a kind of a shame. People listen to that first episode. These chuckles heads have no idea what they're doing.
Turned it off right there. So that's episode 1.
Yep.
The second most downloaded is good. It's episode 2, Homer's Iliad Part 1. Then we have The Young and the Restless, Joseph Campbell and the Hero's Journey.
Yeah.
We have 28, Susan Wise Bauer, The Well-Trained Mind, a
right.
conversation with Susan. What's the best Latin textbook? Discussion with Patrick Owens. How to be a Latin Guru, did pretty well. That's episode 63. Our conversation with Heather McDonald, also a wonderful guest to have on the show.
Yeah, she was unbelievable.
Yep. And then what's the best Latin textbook? Part 2. History and the Trojan War. And then here's a surprise entry coming in at the 10th slot, I believe, is The Whole Enchilada, Epicureanism and Lucretius's De Rerum Natura.
Oh, that's right. We did, I think, was it 5 episodes?
We did at least 3, maybe it was 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 perhaps.
There's a whole enchilada there.
And I think that's, again, one of those people are Googling, right? They're thinking about DoorDash or Grubhub or Uber Eats. What are we going to have for supper?
Getting something from Taco Bell?
Yeah, I want the whole enchilada. And then boom, they stumble into, I got to listen to this podcast and Epicureanism.
So they completely forget about the gordita.
That's right.
And they listen to our episode.
It's more like Borodita.
That's really interesting. So there's our top 10 so far.
Yeah. So, if you're the kind of person who has sympathy and compassion for neglected episodes, you know what to do.
Yes.
All right, Jeff. Well, that's just about a wrap on the Cheesy Clip Show.
It is, but before we get out of here, Dave, can you tell us something about the Moss Method and LLPSI?
Yes. If you would like to study Greek with me, you can go to mossmethod.com and check out the free offerings. Sign up for the course. You will not regret checking out this fabulous value. There's a lot of material there, so you can go from, what's the catchphrase?
Neophyte to erudite.
That's correct, in your study of Greek. If you'd also like to take up Latin, so that you can read Greek and Latin poetry and prose like Jeff and I do, in a number of different settings, so much wonderful material, then please go to latinperdiem.com/LLPSI. and check out the course that I have there. It's a good value as well. It's $199 presently. We're going to raise the price because the course is now fully complete, and you want to purchase it at this price before it goes up because it's got 33 different instructional videos. There's just so much material there. You can definitely learn Latin this way.
And if they go to mossmethod.com and latinperdiem.com, there's lots of free stuff they can check out.
That's right.
And these programs get direct access, not just to your videos, but direct access to you.
That's right.
You're grading the quizzes. You're meeting with them with the office hours.
That's correct. I don't put a lackey or a flunky in there.
That's right.
It's all direct. So it's a good opportunity, I think, to really gain some proficiency in these languages. Some of you have said that you like the podcast quite a bit, but you're not in a position to buy a coffee machine and you have as many books as you can handle. Mm-hmm. Another way to support us is to go to patreon.com/LatinPerDiem, and you could become a Patreon supporter. It's all part of this media empire that I mentioned earlier in the show, and that money goes directly to maintaining this program.
And if people wanted to, they can offer something, just a very small dollar amount.
Yeah, $1.99.
There's not like a
no.
You have to contribute X amount of dollars.
No,
right.
No, not like that at all.
Right.
And any bit, we're very appreciative. We do this for fun. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme, obviously.
Right.
As you can tell by the jokes we tell. We're just grateful for all the support.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun to do, but as Dave and I were just talking the other day, one of the most rewarding part is that people like it.
Yeah, they do.
Right, and we love to hear from you.
At least some of them.
Least some of them, yes. And we'd love to hear from our listeners. And so if you want to drop us a note, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, tell us what you'd like to hear more about. Drop a note. You can write to Dave at dave@adnauseam.com. Don't forget the V.
You can also say, please don't ever do another Cheesy Clip show.
That's fine. Let us know.
We need to know that.
We can take it.
So send that to Jeff at adnauseam.com. Don't forget the V.
Right. Now, Dave, what are we doing next week?
Well, we got to say some thank yous.
Oh, of course.
Of course. It's okay. But next week, we're going to go back to the Aeneid Book 6.
Yep.
We need to thank Ken and Scott for their awesome guitar intro and outro, changing things up a little bit.
Yep.
Mishka, of course, she did a lot of work on this one.
She did. She waded through the archives.
That's correct.
To pull out these clips. So.
And we also want to say a special thank you to a young woman who lives in Texas, my friend Flannery B. And she did a lot of work on selecting clips. A very bright young woman, hard worker, and we're grateful for her contribution to this episode.
Thanks a lot, and thank you all for listening.
And wait a minute.
What?
Do we have a gustatory parting shot?
Do you have one? I don't have one.
I thought that we could do something a little bit different.
Okay, please.
We could ask the audience to come up with their own gustatory parting shot.
I like that a lot.
Tag that on the end, and if you don't have one, just go eat a sandwich.
Sounds good.